back to winning isn't easy. Imprisoned Minnesota farm workers Symetra benefits terminated. Now, under ERISA disability policies or plans, you have the burden to prove each month that you're entitled to your benefits by providing medical evidence demonstrating that you meet the policy's definition of disability. And the failure to do so can result in the denial or termination of benefits. So let me give you an example. Let's say your policy defines disability as the inability to perform the material and substantial duties of your regular occupation. And you have to prove, based on that definition, your inability to perform that occupation. So how does that go if you're incarcerated? So let me tell you the story about Mr. Bray, who had a policy that was administered by Symetra Life Insurance Company. Now, Bray worked as a box stacker on a Minnesota farm, lifting loads of up to 75 pounds over his head and below his waist. On May 2, 2016, he suffered an on-the-job injury to his left shoulder, requiring 3 surgeries. Despite the surgeries, he had progressive problems and complications that developed in his other shoulder and in his cervical spine. He applied for his long-term disability benefits through his employer Symetra administered plan. And the plan said, look, we're going to define disability as, for the first 60 months, the first 5 years, as sickness or injury that prevents the claimant from performing the material and substantial duties of his regular occupation. And after 5 years, the definition is going to shift from an inability to perform any gainful occupation. So Bray received benefits for over 4 years until benefits were terminated on July 16, 2022. Keep that date in mind here. Bray was incarcerated from early May of 2021 until early March of 2023. And you can imagine that it was hard to get medical treatment, but he also couldn't really provide updated medical documentation or proof of the ongoing care. Prison records are not the best. But after his release, he filed an appeal. And Symetra hired 2 medical reviewers who concluded that those medical records, those prison medical records, didn't support restrictions from preventing him to perform any gainful occupation. So the plan administrator found that he didn't meet the policy's definition of disability and terminated his benefits. This case ends up in federal court. The federal court noted that there was not a lot of evidence regarding his care when he was incarcerated. And under the plan, he was required to remain under the regular care of a doctor and provide proof. Symetra had made multiple requests for the documentation. And because he didn't respond, because he wasn't getting his mail, his benefits were initially suspended and later terminated. So during the appeal, Bray submitted 15 pages of prison medical records showing the treatment he had received. He reported his shoulder condition, but those records didn't show shoulder-specific care. Of course, the question was whether even shoulder-related care was appropriate or available, but the records certainly didn't address the question of whether he declined any treatment. So the judge said, look, without more substantial documentation, it's going to be unreasonable to penalize him for the absence of specific treatment during incarceration. The court recognized that Symetra had previously determined he was disabled and had paid benefits for the 3 years before his incarceration. And the court concluded that a pre-existing factual disability could continue to justify benefits even when the legal or procedural requirements, such as providing records, could not be met because of incarceration. That's not always going to be the case, I assure you, even if you're not in jail. So the judge awarded benefits for the remainder of the own occupation period. A good result, but one I think that is potentially case specific. Got it? Let's take a break.